And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this very beautiful day today, the 23rd of August, and of course the temperature is a beautiful 21 degrees and mostly sunny here in Brisbane. So once again, welcome back after the weekend. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend, considering the circumstances, whatever way and whichever way in which you managed to, celebrate. But, well, right now it is time to look at the news for today and see what's been happening. Well, let's take a look at Queensland first, and we'll go across all the states.
Well, good morning, Queensland. It's another great day of COVID results. We have no new cases. That's 0 cases for another day here in Queensland, leaving our total number of cases throughout the pandemic at 1,964. Just 39 of those remain active after 12 were discharged. We continue to see a high level of testing given that low amount of COVID in the community. So we did 9,918 samples in the last 24 hours, which is a great result. And Queensland Health continues to ramp up our vaccination efforts. 13,036 vaccines administered by Queensland Health. We now have over 3 million vaccines administered in Queensland since the vaccine became available. We're now down to just 970 people in home quarantine. That's down from a peak of more than 19,000 during the Indooroopilly Delta outbreak. Our QR code app has been incredibly successful and has greatly assisted our contact tracers in their efforts to identify people who may have been in contact with COVID-19. It has worked where other attempts to have a COVID tracing app have failed. As at 4 p.m. on the 18th of August, over 184,000 locations or businesses had a QR code that could talk to the app, and that's growing at a rate of 3% per week. More than 3 million times someone in Queensland has scanned a QR code to check in at a location or business. Approximately 4.68 million devices have downloaded the Check In Queensland app that our contact tracers use to identify who has been at contact locations. And what we're announcing today is a further expansion of the use of the QR code app. From Monday the 30th, so in a week's time, 20,000 taxis, limousines and rideshare vehicles will be required to have the QR code app, and riders will be required to scan the app before they ride. We saw in Cairns just how risky a infected taxi driver could be. We were very fortunate in Cairns not to see further transmission from that case. And so adding the QR codes to rideshare, taxi and limousine vehicles will allow us to ensure that if in the future we have a COVID case in one of those vehicles, we will be able to trace those who may have been in contact with it. And so from here, we're looking to those operators to register to get
and
their
right
QR
now we'll cross
code
over
to begin
to the
displaying
live
it on their
with the
vehicles,
Premier.
and they will be mandatory from the 30th.
And we know that one of our main jobs is to keep the supply chains going through COVID. And I wanted to come out here today and see firsthand the work that people are doing in this centre. But also too, we want to prioritise these groups of workers to get their vaccine. So I'll have a little bit more to say about that in a moment, but I'm quite sure that everyone out there wants to know our case numbers for today. So we've got 2 new cases. One is linked to that Indooroopilly cluster and was in home quarantine. So once again, thank you to all of our families that are doing home quarantine. We appreciate it. And the second one was overseas acquired in hotel quarantine. So that's really good as well. So Queensland, you are doing a terrific job. But what we are seeing is the continual escalation of cases in New South Wales and Victoria. And we have to try and keep Queensland as safe as possible. But we are very concerned that there could be another outbreak at any day. There's a lot of virus circulating in New South Wales. Those case numbers are increasing, and we're seeing increased numbers of cases in Victoria as well. So Queenslanders, keep doing the great job. Dr. Young updated us this morning that police a couple of weeks ago actually intercepted a man on the southwest border and turned that man around. That gentleman later tested positive to COVID. So the police are doing everything they can. I want to give that assurance to the public. But at some stage, my greatest fear is that either coming in through our airports or coming in across our borders, someone is going to come in with COVID. So we have to be incredibly vigilant, and that is why if anyone has any symptoms whatsoever, please go and get tested. And of course our police, our frontline services, our health staff, everybody is doing a great job. And you only have to see the workers here at this distribution centre. There are some 2,000 workers that work here. We added our distribution outlets workers to 1B, the category 1B. We haven't had a high uptake of that. So what we're planning to do is when we get that 100,000 extra doses of Pfizer that's coming in through from the federal government, we're going to be setting up vaccination hubs where we will actually take people out to these big centres like these distribution centres, and we will give the people the opportunity to get the vaccine. So we've also identified meatworks as well. We want to make sure that the people who are working in our supply chains of meatworks are vaccinated, and our food distribution centres. So we've identified about 28 in total, and we will be prioritising those once that extra vaccine comes in. So that's fantastic news. All right, I might hand over to Dr. Young to say a few words, and got the Deputy Premier here who's been working very closely with the distribution companies. I want to thank him for that, keeping the lines of communication updated. And it's good to be in Leanne Enoch's electorate as well. So I'll hand over to Dr. Young.
So 2 new cases overnight, one in home quarantine related to the Indooroopilly cluster, so a household contact of a case there in their home in quarantine throughout their infectious period, so of no risk at all. But I am so grateful for all of those people who continue to be in home quarantine. It's going on and on for them. I'm very, very grateful. Then the second case is someone who returned with their family from Philippines in hotel quarantine and now is positive. There have been other members of that family previously positive, so it's another contact there. Now, our biggest risk as we go forward is, of course, the increasing numbers of cases that we're seeing every single day, both in Victoria, New South Wales and the ACT. So could I just remind people, if you do have a need to cross the border to go into that border zone in New South Wales, when you come back into Queensland, you have got to practice exactly what you would have to practice if you're in New South Wales, which means stay-at-home requirements, wearing masks at all times. And that applies whether you're a Queensland resident coming back home into Queensland or a New South Wales resident coming across the border for one of those very limited reasons. So you need to wear masks, and you can only do that task that you're allowed to cross the border for. You can't take the opportunity to go and visit cinemas or go to a pub, etc., etc. You really are bound by exactly the same stay-at-home orders. So that's for anyone who travels down into the border zone at this point in time while we're seeing those increased cases. So we are seeing increased cases getting closer and closer to our border, so it's only a matter of time before one of them crosses. Our police are doing an amazing job. They are absolutely brilliant at what they're doing, but eventually it will cross. And our best defence for that is to get vaccinated. So that's why we're here today, looking at how we can quickly vaccinate key people, such as people working in distribution centres, and a whole lot of other people. If you haven't gone online yet and registered to get vaccinated, please do so immediately, because we're rapidly getting through all of those people who've expressed interest. So we need more people. And that's the most efficient way of us organising that all of our clinics are full. So if you're 60 years of age or older, go and get the AstraZeneca vaccine if you haven't already had it. And there are still a few people who haven't. Go and get it at a pharmacy or your GP. If you're under 60, 16 through to 59, please go online and book with Queensland Health. There are some GPs providing Pfizer now, so you can go on the Commonwealth Government eligibility checker for the vaccine and you can book with a GP, or you can come and book with Queensland Health. Then those 12 to 15-year-old kids, if you're a First Nations child, you can come forward and immediately get vaccinated, or if you're a child with severe underlying health conditions, you can get vaccinated now. Other children will just have to wait a little bit longer till we get more vaccine. Thank you.
Thank you, Premier. Good morning. I think one of the things we've all learned over the last 18 months is there's lots of things that go on behind the scenes that we take for granted, that we often don't notice, that during the pandemic we have noticed, and one of those is food distribution. We're really grateful to our essential workers in distribution centres like this one and in our retail supermarkets who've made sure that we've had food to eat throughout this pandemic, even during lockdowns. They've made sure we're fully stocked with toilet paper and beef mince, even when people have thought they needed to stockpile those goods. We've already prioritised distribution centre workers in the vaccine rollout, and now we're announcing an in-reach program for abattoirs and distribution centres, so that in the future, if we do have a COVID outbreak or a lockdown, those essential workers who'll need to continue to go to work can be protected. It's incredibly important. If you look where we are right now at the Woolworths Distribution Centre, this is the beating heart of the Woolworths system in Queensland and northern New South Wales. 1,000 truck movements a day, millions of cartons every week going from here to Woolworths stores right across Queensland and New South Wales. We've worked really closely with our supermarket.
We leave that report there. Their life is continuing, and of course, looking at those distribution centres, many times we get food on the shelf, we go pick it up, bag it up, bring it home. But if you can see the activities that do take place in the background, those distribution centres, the trucks that come in, let's say there'll be 1,000 trucks coming through there today, and there's so many people who are working to make sure that we get, our essentials, that our supermarkets are stocked and things that are happening. So, that's good news that two cases only, and one in replication and the other one with that arrival. Well, right now, let's take a look at what's happening in New South Wales.
To 8 p.m. last night, there were 830 cases in New South Wales. Sadly, very sadly, there were 3 more deaths. There was a gentleman in his 60s who died at Royal Prince Alfred Hospital. There was a gentleman in his 70s who died at St George Hospital. And there was a lady in her 80s who died at Wollongong Hospital. And to each of those people's families, I just want to express my condolences and sympathy to them. It's a very, very difficult time for them and for the broader community, but particularly for those families of those 3 people who passed away. To this point, in this current COVID outbreak, we have had 71 COVID-related deaths, and we currently have 550 patients in New South Wales hospitals. Almost 100 of those are in our intensive care units. And to 8 p.m. last night, the test numbers, which included some backlog cases, was 206,193. Dr. Gar will have a bit more to say about those tests. I am pleased I am pleased, very pleased, that the vaccination rate in New South Wales is now quite extraordinary. And I want to thank the residents of New South Wales for coming out in such great numbers to be vaccinated. I'm advised that in fact New South Wales is now amongst the highest, if not the highest, in the world in terms of vaccination rates. And that only happens when the residents, the citizens of New South Wales come forward to try and keep not only themselves, their families, but also the balance of our community in New South Wales safe, and indeed in our broader Australian community. Because what we're
They were up to date on Australian Indian Radio and Brisbane Indian Times. And 830 local cases there, and only 2 cases here in Brisbane, and those 2 cases we knew about. Right now, let's go to ACT, where they have recorded 19 new cases.
Good morning, everyone. We've recorded 19 cases to 8 p.m. yesterday evening. 17 of those cases are linked and 2 remain under investigation. Of the 19 new cases, only 6 were infectious in the community. Unfortunately, we have a small cluster of cases in our disability community, a little into double digits, around 10 to 12. This includes people living with disability and disability support workers. The government acknowledges the anxiety that this is causing and can advise that we have been actively supporting the affected individuals and the broader community. Minister Stephen Smith will talk further to this. Yesterday, 3,640 tests were conducted in the ACT. Wait times for testing are shorter than have been experienced earlier in the outbreak and earlier in the week. The weather forecast for Monday and Tuesday, though, is for quite a lot of rain. This will have an impact on our pop-up testing clinics. So our advice today is that if you have been waiting to get a test, wait times are much lower, and today would be a very good day to do so. ACT Policing advise that around 450 traffic stops were conducted yesterday and only 2.
So they were with 19 new cases in ACT. Right now, let's go to Victoria, where they recorded 65 new locally acquired cases.
There were 65 local cases reported in today's numbers, 16 of which we announced yesterday linked to the Shepparton cases. Kate will go through those links in more detail shortly. 55 are linked to known outbreaks. 10 cases have their acquisition source under investigation, and 12 were in isolation for the entirety of their infectious period. I can also advise another case reported overnight, but not in this morning's numbers, has come in from the Mansfield area, and it too is linked to the Shepparton cases. There are now some 440 active coronavirus cases in Victoria. 27 people are now in hospital. That's a significant jump from where we were in recent days. 12 of those 27 are in ICU and 5 are on a ventilator, and we send our best wishes and support to all of those people who are struggling with this virus. There were 44,147 tests processed yesterday for the COVID-19 virus, and there were also 26,149 vaccinations in our state-run centres, quite a high number for a Saturday, and continuing a very solid list of vaccination levels both in our state-run clinics and in the wider public health sector, primary health sector rather, over past weeks as more and more Victorians get on board and support vaccinations as our passport towards hope and getting out of this vaccine, this COVID-19 pandemic.
So getting out of this pandemic, and we now 2 cases in Queensland, the 2 cases that has been known, 65 cases in Victoria, 19 cases in ACT, and 833 cases in New South Wales. So those are the numbers. That's the way they're stacking. Right now, let's take a look, a message from our sponsors for the event.
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetralty.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
And real estate is there well, and don't forget that on Wednesday we have the real estate update right here with Usha Chandra. Well, right now we're going to talk about diabetes. Well, it is something which is prevalent in our community as well. So Australia is significantly lagging other countries who have access to sophisticated technologies to manage type 1, which is T1D, and 127,000 Australians living with the disease find themselves thrust into a world of complex calculations and are forced to make a staggering 180 health decisions every day to manage the chronic disease where the pancreas produces little or no insulin. Well, until now, Australians with type 1 diabetes had limited options regarding the therapy available to keep them alive. Injections up to 7 times a day through needles and insulin pens and insulin pumps, which were inconvenient tubes limiting mobility and hindering their ability to take part in activities. These options will soon be a thing of the past, with the new TGA-approved port-based system now available to Australians. The pod has a hidden needle and is operated from a device similar to the mobile phone. The system includes a wearable tubeless insulin pod and can be worn almost anywhere and carries up to 3 days, meaning 72 hours of insulin, resulting in a significant improvement in the quality of life of type 1 diabetes. Well, today we'll be discussing all of this because this week is that awareness week, which is beginning from today, the 23rd. So we'll be speaking with Cheryl Steele, who is a registered nurse with postgraduate qualifications in midwifery, health counselling and diabetes education. She is the manager of diabetes education services at Western Health. Her primary interest in diabetes education are insulin pumps, continuous glucose monitoring systems, and diabetes in pregnancy. Cheryl has co-authored papers in peer-reviewed journals on type 1 diabetes and gastronomical diabetes. So, she lives with type 1 diabetes, which is what she will be talking about, and manages that with a do-it-yourself closed pump. Well, right now, let's welcome Cheryl to the studios, and let's see all the things that we get. So welcome, the Cheryl, and let's see what we can find out today about all of this. So what is the difference between type A and type 2, and why is constant insulin required for type A? As we know, many people talk about all of this, but not many people might know about that. So, if you could explain to us the difference between the two and how we can, look at those and how we can manage those ones. So, it is always very hard and to know the difference? For people who are with that will probably know the difference, but people who don't know, who are not exposed to that might not know the difference.
Type 1 and type 2 diabetes are quite different conditions. Type 1 diabetes results from the body breaking down the cells that are able to make insulin, whereas type 2, the person still makes insulin, just the body can't make it effectively. And we need insulin to sustain life. So a person who is living with type 1 diabetes needs to have insulin to stay alive. And insulin must be injected because of the molecule that makes up the insulin. You can't actually ingest it.
Okay, so that's the difference there, Cheryl. Thanks for pointing that out. Now, of course, when we have all these insulins and everything that people need to deal with, there's also mental impacts in there, and there's social. So what are the social and mental impacts of type 1 diabetes?
Living with type 1 diabetes can be both physically and mentally demanding. The person who lives with type 1 diabetes is required to make up to 180 decisions a day around their diabetes management. And for some people that might come quite naturally, but for other people it can be a real burden on their mental health. So it's important we recognise both the physical and the psychological needs of people living with type 1 diabetes.
So you quite rightfully said there, Cheryl, that it does have those impacts on the mind as well. So looking at the treatment, so can you tell us about the current treatment options for people living with type 1 diabetes right here in Australia?
People living with type 1 diabetes in the Australian context don't have all the choices they should have for managing their diabetes. So in Australia, we
Sorry, we seem to have lost the line there. So, when we're looking at the options that you were talking about, that we don't have too many options. So, how do the different options impact people with type 1 diabetes?
Type 1 and type 2 diabetes are quite different conditions. Type 1 diabetes results from the body breaking down the cells that are able to make insulin, whereas type 2, the person still makes insulin, just the body can't make it effectively. And we need insulin to sustain life. So a person who is living with type 1 diabetes needs to have insulin to stay alive. And insulin must be injected because of the molecule that makes up the insulin. You can't actually ingest it. Depending on which treatment option people with type 1 diabetes are using, so some people are happy to use insulin pens and find that effective. A lot of people prefer to use an insulin pump for their diabetes management. In Australia at the moment, we're limited with the choice of pumps that we have. So most of our pumps have tubing. So for some people that's difficult when they're at work, or for children at school having tubing that can get caught up on things that, potentially is uncomfortable to wear. So having a choice where you can just have a little pod that's filled with insulin and attached to the skin, and then a device like a mobile phone that you use to control the insulin delivery can be really beneficial for people living with type 1 diabetes.
Okay, so that is wonderful information there, Cheryl. And thanks for touching up on the first question as well. We had a temporary break in the audio. Oh, by the way, Cheryl is coming via phone and not via a video link today. Yes, Cheryl, you have just discussed about the Omnipod DES. So what do the features of Omnipod DES system mean for Australians with type 1 disease?
For Australians living with type 1 diabetes, to have the choice of using the Omnipod DASH system would mean that they have a little pod that's full of insulin that's attached directly to the skin, so no tubing, nothing to get caught up when they're running around being busy, no trying to work out where you're going to put your device whilst you're dressed in something that's tight-fitting or going swimming. And then you have a PDM, which looks like a small mobile phone that operates the system. So it's discreet, easy to use, very straightforward, and importantly for a lot of people will allow them a system to deliver insulin that they feel very comfortable with.
Okay, so, that is sounds like a very good system, and about time that as we now managing the system, monitoring the sugar levels and everything, it can be very challenging, and as we have discussed before as well. So, in today's interview, there's so much, only that much that we can cover, and of course, there is a lot more questions that people might have or might like to know. So, where can Australians can go for more information, Sarah?
If you want more information about the Omnipod Dash system, you can certainly go to their website at www.omnipod.com/en-au or talk to your healthcare professionals such as your diabetes educator or your diabetes specialist, who should be able to share some information with you.
So once again, Cheryl, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing that information with us, because it is very important, especially, in our community, diabetes is a very, very common disease, and people really need to manage that. Now that the Omnipod Dash is available, I'm pretty sure that people would like to explore that. Once again, thank you so much for being on the show. So there you are, ladies and gentlemen, that interview there with Cheryl, and of course it is good news for us that this kind of things is available. Many times we don't know, and now that it is available, so it is for us to find out a little bit more. So what it is, it's the Omnipod Dash system, and it is a new system that is out there for managing and covering the events and of course managing the diabetes there as well. Well, right now we'll cross over to Victoria, and we looked at the cases there, the 65 cases, but right now let's take a look at what the Victorian Police are saying about the protest that took place there.
Firstly, dealing with yesterday's demonstration, and I want to be really clear on this, we said that should not go ahead. We're in the middle of a pandemic. That's pretty clear to everyone. The Chief Health Officer has set guidelines. That's the law. No one can gather in public places. Protesting is illegal. That was pretty clear to everybody. Yesterday morning, at the press conference yesterday morning, I implored people not to come in. We said we're doing everything we possibly can to stop people from protesting. And then we saw over 4,000 people turn up in the centre of Melbourne yesterday. Now, of that 4,000 people, a number of those, and a very small number I believe from what I've been briefed on, were families and a couple of children. The vast majority, by and large, I've been briefed, were men 25 to 40.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. There's a similar case right here in Brisbane as well, where the protest took place. Well, right now, as I said, Prime Minister has joined us, so we'll go to that conference straight away.
That is our goal, to live with this virus. Modelling to produce the national plan targets that were agreed a month or so ago. And indeed, as you will recall, the national plan was first agreed without those targets attached to it, understanding what the steps would need to be, and then with the science guiding our decisions about what those targets should be. We have been cautious during the pandemic, and that has saved lives, and it has saved livelihoods. There's no doubt about that. 30,000 lives saved, 1 million people back in work, as we have combated this virus in all of its strains over this more than 18 months now. But once you get to 70% of your country that is eligible for the vaccine, and 80%, the plan sets out that we have to move forward. We cannot hold back. Our task between that day and now is to ensure that we ready ourselves for that next phase. It means that we must continue to vaccinate at the record paces we are now doing that. We must ensure that our public health systems are ready for the increase in the number of cases that will occur. We must be clear about the rules, the common sense rules that continue to apply post 70% and post 80%, which is factored in to the work that is being done, that has been the basis of our plan. Common sense rules. And we must adjust our mindset. Cases will not be the issue once we get above 70%. Dealing with serious illness, hospitalisation, ICU capabilities, our ability to respond in those circumstances, that will be our goal. And we will live with this virus as we live with other infectious diseases. That's what the national plan is all about, was always about. That's how we designed it, and that's how it needs to be implemented. Because the national plan is our deal with all Australians. It is the understanding that we have with Australians making their sacrifices now and who have made them over such a long time, that that sacrifice will get them to the next step. Because if not at 70% and 80%, then when? Then when? We must make that move, and we must prepare to make that move, and we must prepare the country to make that move. The lockdowns now being endured are taking an extremely heavy toll, both on the mental and physical health of Australians and on the economic success of Australia. It is taking a heavy toll, and so they must only continue for as long as they are absolutely necessary and not a day more. It is always darkest before the dawn, and I think these lockdowns are a demonstration of that. But the dawn is not far away, and we are working towards that dawn, and we are hastening towards the dawn. We should not delay it. We should prepare for it. We should not fear it. We should embrace it, and we should move forward together. There will be those who will seek to undermine the national plan. There will be those who will seek to undermine confidence in it. I think their motives are clear. But there are also those who may fear it and have concerns about what it means when you get to phase B and what that means in terms of increases in cases. Our goal must be to help people overcome those fears and not give in to them. Because this cannot go on forever. This is not a sustainable way to live in this country. Without those freedoms that we all cherish, we understand, all sensible Australians understand, that there has had to be restrictions. There has had to be a curtailment of what we can do during the course of a global pandemic. The virus doesn't respect ideologies, it doesn't respect any of these things. It's just a virus, and we have to deal with it. Australians get that. But equally, they also know there has to be a plan out, there is a plan out, and we need to move forward with that plan. These lockdowns, once we reach our goal, we know on the scientific, medical and economic advice, do more harm than good. And so it's important that we move as quickly as we can to that next phase. And there is strong progress towards that plan. The Health Minister will outline more of this in a moment. 1.8 million vaccines in just the last 7 days. On a per capita basis, that's on par with the best ever week in the United States and better than the best ever week in the United Kingdom. Australia is hitting those records. In particular, 17.15 million doses have now been administered around the country. And I want to stress that 75% of over 50s have now had their first dose. 85% of over 70s have now had their first dose. Now, this is very important because when we reach 70%, and I had this conversation with the Chief Medical Officer this morning, When we reach 70%, those most vulnerable in the older age groups will have an even higher level of vaccination. And so our concern, of course, in those phases is for the unvaccinated. And that's why we encourage everybody to get vaccinated. But we will know when we hit that 70% and the 80% mark, we will see an even higher level of vaccination rates amongst the most elderly, who are the most vulnerable to fatality as a result of COVID-19. So we have the plan. We are making great progress to achieve the goals of that plan, and that's what I think gives Australians great hope to endure through what will still be a difficult time in the months ahead. We need to stay focused, we need to get ready, and we need to move ahead. Now, just briefly, before I pass over to the Minister for Foreign Affairs, I said last night there were 4 further flights. One is still in the air, returning to AMAB now. Over 450 people we've been able to evacuate overnight. That brings to over 1,000 people, together with the United Kingdom, we've been able to evacuate over the course of these operations. And I want to note that that includes not only Australians, but it includes a large number of Afghan locally engaged employees and humanitarian visa holders that we've been able to get out of the country. In addition to that, there are many women and children that we've been able to get out of Afghanistan in what has been some of the most extreme conditions our people have ever operated in, if not worse. And I want to thank them for the work they're doing on the ground, incredibly difficult work under extraordinary stress. Decisions they're having to make, the care they're having to provide has been truly extraordinary in the best Australian tradition. We have been able, over the course of the last few days, and I can't go into too much detail about this, but working with other countries and continuing to do that to expand the ways we're being able to process people, to get more people into the airport and onto planes. We will continue to do that in partnership with our allies who are working there, and ensure that we can get greater uplift in the days we still have remaining as part of these operations. But with that, I'll pass you over to the Minister for Foreign Affairs and then the Minister for Health and Aged Care.
Thanks, PM, and thanks for that acknowledgement of the teams on the ground from the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, from Home Affairs, the Australian Border Force and the ADF. As we've seen from reporting and as we know from our people on the ground, this is a situation that remains extremely volatile and very dangerous. Our top priority continues to be ensuring that safe departure of Australian citizens and visa holders, and also working with our friends and partners to support one another's evacuation operations. The most significant challenge continues to be access to Hamid Karzai International Airport. The North Gate has been closed for many hours, and although we have been able to continue to get people into the airport. Our officials on the ground are literally in constant discussions with the US, with NATO representatives, about the best ways to move people into the airport. And as the Prime Minister has said previously, the National Security Committee of Cabinet is meeting every day on these matters. Our continued focus is on bringing out every Australian and Australian visa holder that we possibly can, and supporting those vulnerable Afghanis as well to move if we possibly can. There is, as you will have seen from public reporting, a discussion going on about the prospect of the United States extending its withdrawal deadline. We are part of those discussions, and if they are to be extended, we are absolutely ready to support a continuing operation at Hamid Karzai International Airport. In the last 24 hours, we have evacuated over 450 people from Kabul on those 4 ADF flights, including Australian and New Zealand citizens, UK evacuees, Afghan locally engaged employees and visa holders. And since the 18th of August, that total is over 1,000 people, again including Australia and New Zealand nationals, those visa holders and foreign nationals. The key to this is the cooperation we are strongly engaged in across every element of the activities, evacuating not just Australians and Afghan visa holders for Australia, but people on behalf of the United Kingdom, the United States and New Zealand. One of our ADF flights on the 21st of August carried 210 people uplifted on behalf of the United Kingdom. More flights are planned over coming days, subject to operational conditions. A charter plane transporting 175 evacuees made up of Australians, Australian visa holders and passengers evacuated on behalf of New Zealand arrived this morning in Melbourne. That takes our total number of passengers returned to Australia who have been through the Minhad process to 271. I want to acknowledge and thank the many colleagues, senators and members right across the parliament who are advocating for and supporting so many vulnerable people who are attempting to get to the airport in Kabul and inside the airport. The Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, the Home Affairs and Defence teams are all working to support this effort and to evacuate as many as possible. We have significant information being shared amongst parliamentarians, with the departments, with my office, and that is helpful to us and very helpful to the teams on the ground. It is certainly an absolutely punishing environment and complex environment for those trying to get to Hamid Karzai International Airport and to get into the airport, and for those helping them. I think it's fair to say, Prime Minister, that we are thinking of them all.
Thanks very much, Prime Minister and Maurice. Every vaccination protects one Australian, but every vaccination protects all Australians. And what we have seen is yesterday was a record Sunday vaccination day. It was a record.
So yesterday was a record Sunday vaccination day. Well done, Australians. And of course, when we look at the figures around the country, New South Wales also recorded the most number of vaccinations in a day. So that is very, very nice, very good to see. Well, right now we'll go and take a look at some of the functions and events taking place, and some of the functions and events that took place tomorrow. I'll bring to you some glimpses of the Reversing Fascinator's function which took place at the Royal Convention Centre in RNA Showgrounds. Amazing event there as well. So I'll bring to you some glimpses of that tomorrow. Today we had that a very important topic on the diabetes, the type 1, and of course about the discussion about the Omnipay DASH system, which is now available for Australians. Okay, so with these functions and events, we'll go one by one. The Nritya Bharatiya School of Kathak Dance, Arpan, the Act of Giving on Saturday, 4th of September, 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. A concert which was postponed from 14th of August, which is now on 4th of September. Some tickets are still available. Please do get those. And ones who had tickets previously would still be valid. And next up is the Diwali function happening in Benio, Grandstand. Benio District Community Group is organizing that. You can contact the Vinder Bains for any information. We are supporting that event as well. Next up, we have the VSK 9th Annual Cup, which is underway. It is happening now, and it will be all Sunday games with the professional umpires and everyone, and we are proud to be supporting this event as well. The Federation of Indian Communities of Queensland, Diwali, which will be on 5th of November, free entry 11 a.m. till 11 p.m. At King George Square. For further information, you can contact President Mr. Syam Das. And next up, India Day Fair. Of course, mark your diaries for the 23rd of October, while the 15th of August is a very significant day, and we've had our celebration there. But in a grand style, in a public manner, we will host the India Day Fair this year once again on the 23rd of October at Suncorp Piazza. We'd like to see you all there as well. Janamastami. While wishing everyone all the very best for the first day of Janamastami today, and we'll look at all the functions and events taking place in all different places. Well, of course, this is the function happening by Kairali, Brisbane, and of course, on the 11th of September. And of course, we would also like to wish happy Onam to everyone. Of course, we know that has passed because yesterday was Raksha Bandhan, and it was the Purnamasi of the Saran Mass. Lalita Kalala School of Bharatnatyam presents Sukhno Bhavantu, the experience of divine bliss on Saturday, 28th of August from 4:15 p.m. onwards. And of course, if you had tickets there before, those tickets will still be valid. And if you haven't, you might as well try. You might be lucky to get a ticket if they're still available. But this is the annual concert, and it will be a very, very nice concert. Boulevard, the dinner and dance Fiji Indo Fusion, and this is taking place on 4th of September at Unides Community Conference Centre, 204 Seabrook Road in Willawong from 6:34. Tickets are 65, early bird 60, so it's supporting a very good cause. Please do support the Boulevard annual dinner as well. And 28th of August, we also have supported by City of Logan the Multicultural Fest 2021 at Fest of Taste and Traditions, 28th August from 10:30 a.m. at 108 and 112 Middle Road in Hillcrest. So please do come and take part in this event. Is proudly supported by Queensland Government. And concert not to be missed on 13th of November. Sargam Musical Group presents their musical night. Once again, this has been a postponed event, now taking place on the 13th of November, allowing everyone enough time to get ready. Sri Vishnu Maya Mandir, 86 Scott McLean, Sri Krishna Janamastami by His Holiness Dharam Guru Pandit Tripathi Ji. Everyone is invited to please join in this celebration. Well, it is beginning from tonight. And we'll finish on Monday, the 30th of August. Monday to Friday, the timing will be 6:30 onwards. Saturday and Sunday, 5 p.m. onwards. Food will be provided daily. Havan will be performed on Saturday, 28th at 5 p.m. And Sri Krishna Ji Ka Janam Utsav, 8 p.m. on Monday, 30th of August. The celebration will include Kirtan, Sohar and Garba. Of course, we'll conclude with Bhog, Aarti and Mahaprasad. So for further information, you can contact Devika Maharaj. Food sponsorship is $400. And Christian Astmi, the 2021 at Sri Selva Vinayakar Temple, 4915 and 4923 Mount Lindsay Highway, South McLean. On 28th August, which is Sunday from 10:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. You can contact Rajesh on 0415 685 462. And Simply Human, celebrating the superheroes without capes, a saga of ordinaries on 2021. New date is the 9th of October. Well, it is wonderful to see the new date being organized. And if you have not had, if you haven't secured your tickets by now, please do so. And if you had done so previously via try bookings, your tickets would still be valid. Last but not the least, an evening of soulful music to raise funds for COVID-19 relief in India. The classics and the classicals, iconic songs of Indian cinema based on ragas. Saturday, 28 August, 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. at Unides Community Centre in Willawong. Tickets via Premier Tickets. And for further information, you can contact Sachin on 0498 656 165. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you are, up to date on Brisbane Indian Times and Australian Indian Radio Live. Well, let's finish off with that press conference with Prime Minister.
Never taken our gaze off that, because at the end of the day, that is what most supports Australians and provides that backstop. Workforce issues, plans of supporting in the contingency circumstances of cases. I don't mean COVID cases. I mean situations where states may need further help or assistance or whatever. That needs to be worked through in the same way that we work national disasters and things like that nature, and the states work together to bring the resources to where they need to go. That's the work. That work enables us to live with the virus, avoiding the day when we hit those rates. And I want to stress, I've put no faith in a calendar. There's no Freedom Day here. That's not what my plan is. I mean, a day is not going to change it. 70% is going to change it. 80% is going to change it. That's the day you get to. That's what actually drives the decision about when you can go to the next step. Now, I'm all for freedom. And the passage to that is based on clearing those gates of 70% and 80%. What day we will hit that? As soon as we possibly can. But Greg, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, so just in terms of the hospital system, last year the states and territories in conjunction with the Commonwealth, I think, did an extraordinary job in building that surge capacity for 7,500 ventilated beds. At the moment, on the advice that I have before me, it's 36 people in ventilation. That figure will be updated during the morning as the state figures come in. But what we have done is create both a sustainable base and a surge capacity. And that surge capacity, which was put in place last year, these were some of the earliest discussions we had around the NSC in February of 2020. And building that, acquiring the ventilation, working with ResMed, working with international partners, means that we have a strong, robust system.
Prime Minister, 13 of 17 Special Forces soldiers have been quietly told that their show cause notice has been withdrawn. Why wasn't this, in relation to the Burton inquiry, why wasn't this publicly announced by government or the Department of Defence, given how high profile the approach was when they were initially accused?
Well, the points that you make, I think, are very relevant, and it just goes to show that there are people making assumptions about these issues and shouldn't be making those assumptions. And there is a proper process we've set up to deal with these matters, and that will be followed. What I do know is there are brave Australians in Kabul right now bringing people to freedom. That's what they're doing, and they have my total respect. And I'm not going to put up with aspersions being cast against their character, and I don't think other Australians will too. I think they'll take a very dim view of that approach.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll leave that there. So, Prime Minister is working towards that 70% to get to the next level. So once and when we reach that target, he doesn't know, but when we reach that, that's when the next phase will kick in. And of course, getting everyone vaccinated, it is very, very important. And of course, on the situation in Kabul, as is mentioned, that everything's being done to try and get our citizens and, of course, Australian visa holders out of there as soon as they can, with all these arrangements that are being made. So it's been wonderful to having your company on this first day of this week, the 28th of August, and of course we have crept up to 23 degrees and it's sunny, and until tomorrow it's goodbye from me. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Don't forget that tomorrow we'll have the PIO TV as well. So the PIO TV news, because it goes to air in India on Monday night, so it will start for us on Tuesday. So we'll go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday. So that's the sequence, and because of the time difference, the Monday night one is what we stream here on Tuesday. But still very good and very relevant information for the PIO. Until tomorrow, it's goodbye from me. It's always so good to see you. Well, as we've said, that it is very important that we maintain the hygiene practices, and that we remain vigilant and observe those rules and regulations that have been put in place, and stay safe, remain safe, and keep others safe as well. Until tomorrow, it's goodbye from me.